I happened to catch one of Alex's videos on Facebook the other day, and he just kind of was talking about a subject that's been near and dear to my heart for a while now. Back in the 90s, I actually had gotten a hold of a set of videos or audios. I think they were CDs. That basically explained how a man could protect himself during divorce proceedings. And I was asked to give a couple of basic tutorial workshops from a couple guys I was in a men's group with that they were attorneys, and they had been, having men come to them who were just so seriously disadvantaged that they actually asked me to speak to some of these guys, and just try to help them, with some what we called back in the day secret divorce planning. Okay. Because, I realized that, a long time ago that a marriage is actually a contract between three parties. Did you know that?
Three parties?
Yeah. A man, a woman, and
the state?
The state. Okay? Now, immediately upon which entering into that contract, the man is legally and financially subservient to the woman and the state. This is why, you don't even have to be married, but a woman could actually get half of your assets after so long being with her, which in that climate, and this was back in the early 90s, and but moving forward to this day, with we live in a much more materialistic society, and since it's well known of the destruction that a woman could bring upon a man, that I just feel that it's important that that the playing field is level, okay? And that's all. I ain't trying to gain an advantage over anybody, but when they came at me and told me that I had to pay $1,200 a month for child support, strictly based off of what my income was and what her income wasn't, I always felt that was kind of an outrageous way to determine. And they totally eliminated the opportunity for me to come to an agreement with the mother of my child by ourselves. And they wanted to impose upon, me what they thought that I should be paying. And so I saw that as an injustice. And, unless you've ever been on the receiving end of a false accusation, okay, or a false no contact order, or even a legitimate no contact order, okay, then you don't know how it feels. And so when I saw you post up that video, just basically covering a subject that was near and dear to my heart, I thought I would comment on there, and it was pretty funny actually, some of the comments that we got from some of the ladies that it's a pretty passionate subject. And so based on that passion, for both sides, and I'm not talking, the need for the men to be better or matriarchy or patriarchy. It's about equality, and it's about, two people interacting with each other, on a level-headed basis and not using children as a pawn, which is the worst thing and the way that the family court system is set up, it's meant to put two people as adversarial, okay? And that's just the way that it is. And so, and so then if you take, for example, let's say you have an average man and he's making $60,000 a year, and that qualifies for, $1,200 worth of child support for two children. Well, if a guy's making $60,000 a year, that's $5,000 a month. What's he taking home on that $5,000? Maybe 32, 35. Okay, so he's paying $1,200 a month child support. So let's say he's got a house payment, $1,200, $1,500, and a car payment, $300, $400. Where does that leave him? Where does that leave that man for the next female that comes along? And I learned long ago that, the way that men look at women a certain way, and women also look at men a certain way. For the most part, they see men as a form of security. You know, the man protected himself with the spear, you know, back in caveman days, and the woman protected herself with the mat. So security in today's day and age has mostly to do with financial. And so when a man is able to understand the math of marriage, okay, then you know he's able to make those type of decisions with more of a level head. You know, if he really knew that the contract was, you know, 2 against 1, you know, more men might refrain from entering into that contract. And I think that was the gist of what your video is why are so many men staying away in droves from the marriage thing, and why are the females feeling so disenchanted because of it? And does that make sense?
It does, and there may be some women out there watching that may not be aware that some of these things are taking place. That we're being divided, that there's an imbalance in these relationships that we're seeing. That more men are going their own way, MGTOW. That there could be social repercussions for a lot of that. Maybe less men of higher quality being available.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
You know.
I think the oldest rule in the book is divide and conquer. And so, as Aaron Russo so eloquently stated, the Rockefellers actually underwrote the whole feminist movement, okay, back in the early 60s, in order to do 2 things. Number 1, tax half of the population that they weren't being taxed. And number 2, to divide the family unit and put the state in control of raising your children. So that now, if you look at just the way that it is, it's like, it's like everything. It's everybody against the man, okay? It's the woman in the state against the man. It's the children in the state against the man. And all I'm trying to do here, making this video, is number 1, probably face my fear of making a video like this, and number 2, just point these things out, because I think a lot of women are waking up to the fact that feminism has not served them. Okay, you got a whole generation of 30s, 40s, 50s, 60-year-old women. They're alone. The family unit they set aside to chase whatever, and now they sit and alone, and they're angry or bitter, and so the number 1 thing that they can do is point their finger at who? The patriarchy, or men in general. When the reality is that, based off what you said, I believe women were tricked. And so when you've been tricked, it's really not all your fault. It's like Adam and Eve, okay? Eve was tricked into eating the apple. Adam munched his way into damnation with his eyes wide open because he didn't want to be alone. The world's first grovel. And so, the men going their own way movement, it actually has a name now, okay? They call it men going their own way. It's just because, they don't want to participate in the degradation of men as we see it. Like I said, you watch any television sitcom, and the man's going to be stupid, and the woman's going to be all-knowing and all-powerful, and if you translate that over into the children's channels and watch them, it's the parents are stupid, and all the TV shows are about dating, for teens or preteen and adolescent children, or
showing pretty poor examples at the same time of how to be a man or how to be a woman or how to actually relate to others. We see really bad examples of how to treat people.
They're showing kids how to treat parents. They're showing women how to treat men. I spent 30 years in sales, and I've always been told we live in a patriarchal society. Well, when you spend several hours or days with a family unit, it's pretty easy to determine who's running shit. Okay? And when you realize that it's the female who's running the family unit, I think that there was a guy named Briffault, Briffault. Briffault's law clearly states that the female is the one who runs the animal family.
And I've heard that quite a bit of the revenue coming from advertising is directed towards the female viewer.
Oh, if you can go back into, what was his name, Sigmund Freud's cousin. His name escapes me right now. But yeah, all the conditioning is in the advertising for washers and dryers and dishwashers and television sets, and this is in the 50s, okay? And the soap operas and all those things. But coming back to the matriarchal society, I do believe that when the 9 out of 10 family units are being run by the female, I do believe that proves that we live in a matriarchal society. And after spending time in front of tens of thousands of customers in 30 years, and observing family units up close and personal, taking sensitive financial information from these people, and knowing who worries more about the bills, knowing who, does most of the financial end of a family unit, it's obvious that females are running shit. And if they say, well, look at Congress and look at all this, well, I tell you what, somebody's sleeping with that man, okay, who's a senator or a representative. I'd say 9 out of 10 of them would be a female probably sleeping. You never know these days, But, and so based on that, they wonder, well, how could it be like, all the men are, no. There's some woman that has that man's ear, and, whether they have that man's ear through his, through his genitalia, that's a pretty powerful motivation. And so you wonder why these laws get passed where, they can have half your shit after, 10 months with a marriage. It's obvious.
So there's a lot of factors why some men may not be as willing to get married as they used to in the past because of some of these changes. And
it boggles my mind to see men, especially like these celebrity types that have gotten married several times. I mean, look at Paul McCartney. I think that he was married for a year or maybe 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And his wife got or Tiger Woods, these settlements are in the tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That says it all right there. I always had just a problem with that. Just kind of a problem with that. Yeah, and so the post-feminized man, okay? The post-feminized man is just basically a man who wants to reclaim his sovereignty, okay? Who wants to enjoy the fruits of his labor, who doesn't want to be told what to do, how he's going to think, what he's going to wear. I mean, if you think about a female that could be arm candy, I can't tell you how many times I've been asked out strictly because I know I'm some kind of arm candy. It's not the greatest feeling.
Elaborate on that terminology.
Well,
and its definition.
Well, men are always going to go for what they call the trophy wife if they can, and women are always going to go for, a man that they can present to the other ladies.
Right.
Oh, he's this, he's that, he's the other. He doesn't got to be the best looking guy, okay? Because obviously I'm not the best looking guy, but, in terms of what he represents to the ladies. Now, a woman, it's always been said that a woman will undress for a man, but she'll dress for other women. And so if you can extrapolate that, then her arm candy is going to be a man who's achieved this level of success and all that up there.
So to that type of woman, she's looking for a type of man that's going to be socially acceptable to her peer group structure.
Yes, because they are the social engineers of society. Men are the mechanical engineers of society. Women are the social engineers of society.
And I've also heard it said that women are a little bit more dependent on what their friends think about them and that peer group structure, whereas men, in some cases, can be a little bit more independent from that.
Did you ever ask yourself why, from an early age, when a girl had to go to the bathroom, they all went together? yeah, that would be evidence of that. You know, it's called packing. And so what you're really, what you're really not up against is what you're really up against as a man is not just the woman, but her whole circle of friends, her mother,
Right.
sisters. I mean, it is everybody against you. And so, like I said, I ain't here to do nothing but just try to level the playing field a little bit. Point out these things. And I tell you what, I can't tell you how many times women will tell me that that is one of the things that they like about me. It's because I'm willing to stand up to it. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard from a female, the biggest complaint is he won't stand up to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's their biggest complaint. He won't stand up to me. He doesn't have any balls. He doesn't have any courage. Now, we can be talking about Mr. fucking tough guy here, but when it comes to standing up to her, and you know what? At that point, the men are being despised because of that. Despised. They despise that man for not having the balls to stand up to her. And for what? Access to the vagina? You know, I used to live my life chasing around access to the vagina. Okay, it was a big part of my thing. But once I decided to give that up, it was amazing how much that the vagina actually comes to you instead.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense at all?
Right.
You know, because they understand, and females are weird like that. They understand that on a base level, okay, they want to know that they have somebody who's willing to stand up to them first. Okay, because if they'll stand up to them, then they can reasonably expect that he'll stand up to anything else that comes along. And so this is one of the things I think more women are waking up to. And as a man going his own way, you'd think that, oh, it's a vow of celibacy or something. It's categorically not. For the most part, we're going to be one or the other end of that spectrum, the controller or the controllee. I have mostly spent my life as the controller, okay? And I had some pretty well refined control freak tendencies. It wasn't until a girl gave me a book one day. It was called The Mastery of Love or Self-Love, or, you know, it was written by the Don Miguel Ruiz, the guy that wrote the Four Agreements. This was like the art of the mastery of self-love or something like that. Anyway, you know, in that book, one of the things that stood out for me was that the right or to control another person, another human being. And so what it basically taught me was that whether that person is your husband, your wife, your children, or whoever, you don't have the right to control anybody. Anybody. And that after you take on control as a theme in your life, you're basically going to kill yourself because of this need to have control. And so after reading that book, I decided to practice just losing it, just losing the control. And I think that shortly after I read that book, my daughter, who was just turned 18, had left and moved across the country, chasing after her dream. Well, you know, if I had been the control freak father, you know, that would have probably just ripped me up and torn me apart. Well, after applying a couple of things I learned in that book, you know, I was actually able to, wow, this is way cool. I don't have any need to control her. That's her dream. That's not my dream. It doesn't matter. You could be sleeping with somebody every night and you don't have the same dream as that person. It's ridiculous for me to do that. And I tell you what, ever since I learned that particular skill, giving up that need to control everything, it set me free. You know, it literally set me free. It took me from being a fucking angry man into being a happy man. And I've always been a happy person, but I was allowed to actually work on that happiness strictly by giving up this need to control. And I think society tells men that they need to be in control. They don't need to show any emotion. They don't need to have any fucking tears or anything like that. Well, that's categorically untrue.
Yeah. I agree. I see almost like a bipolar reality that men should either be dominators or be in control or be submissive and be afraid of women, which is a really important part of our discussion today because, as we talk about our upbringing and as we talk about our experiences in society, I see a lot of ways in which we, and again, I'm speaking for myself and my own experience, we've been conditioned to fear women or their anger. Like that saying says about the wrath of the scorn. There ain't no fury like the scorn of a...
Yeah.
How do you say that phrase?
Yeah.
And then
There's no worse, I know exactly what you're saying, than a woman scorned. Yeah.
And
no hell hath no
right.
fury, and like
so
a woman who's been scorned.
We have a world where men are concerned that they're going to upset a woman by speaking their true mind, and in a way, women aren't getting confident men in return. They're getting men that are feminized, that are willing to do whatever is required to have the sexual experience, instead of being themselves and perhaps getting a higher quality female in return. Yeah. So it seems like society's being programmed to act a certain way, and in the end, it's not really ending up with either men or women being privileged, as they say. Because we're in a world where there's so much dialogue about male privilege, which we'll address, and female privilege, but in the end, I don't see a happy society come about from what we're seeing right now.
Well, you said something that really hit the mark. That men have a hard time trusting women and are kind of scared of them. So imagine that, we live in a society today where women are so mistrusting of men that it's gotten to a point of craziness, okay? But the reality is now, men are equally as mistrusting of women. Okay, we're not awed by women. We're not amazed by them anymore. Quite frankly, we're looking at them from the start from a mistrusting perspective. Now, we already know women are looking at us from a mistrusting perspective. Okay, we've built that tower, and deservedly so, probably.
And that creates that
And so now you have two people who are mistrusting of each other, trying to fucking figure out a way to get along. How do you think that's working?
Not very well.
It's not just the woman who a man has to go through his routines to have her trust. Now the woman has to go through equally amount of rigorous fucking testing to determine if you can trust her, and it's just a fucking recipe for disaster. It's just, that's the world we live in now. And so nobody trusts nobody, and how is anything ever good going to happen when that's the case? I would like to point out the fact that in this society, if you take a really good hard look, that it would be the females that are the privileged class. Okay? When you literally have to boil down your day's work as to keeping a house clean and turning a few knobs on a dishwasher and a stove, going out and gathering up the goods to make a home-cooked meal, if you're even able to do so, okay? And the man runs off and toils for 70 hours a week. You tell me who's the privileged one in that scenario. Okay, so we live in a society that says, oh, the males are privileged, but at what cost? Okay, so and I'm not underestimating the fact of what a mother does. Okay, I wouldn't want that job. I wouldn't trade my 70 hours a week for that. Maybe I would, but the honest God truth is that you either need a man who's working 70 hours a week, or you need a woman who's working too. And so, at that rate, I think the male privilege thing is just overblown. Just like, we live in a patriarchal society. That's grossly overblown. So, at the end of the day, when we are really just talking about equality for everybody, gender equality, I don't want to live in a matriarchal society. I want to live in a patriarchal society. I don't want this, that, or the other. I just want to be able to meet a gal and not have her automatically think I'm a serial killer, and not have her automatically think that she's after me just for my money. And that's the case is when you had a situation where you had a lot of money as a man, and that you knew that 9 out of 10 of the girls that you met really didn't like you for you. They just liked you for your money. It's the same thing as a girl going through the thing, well, he doesn't really like me for me, he just wants to fuck me. It's the same thing.
It seems like there is responsibility on the part of women to change patriarchy, and it deals with the type of men that they pick. And I see a lot of men out there that are abusers, dominators, that have beautiful women at their side. So it seems that there's female responsibility involved in this equation of quote-unquote ending the so-called patriarchy.
I think that would be a product of the feminist movement too. It's known as the alpha male primitive, okay? Which is basically a situation where the females have gotten the men to try to do one-upmanship on each other, to the extent that they're even willing to fight each other, the men are, in order to do the woman's bidding in essence. And, you can take that on an individual level, or you can put it on a societal level. But that's really the case where we find ourselves. The men, because because the alpha male is the pinnacle of whatever, it's really just a bill of goods that's been sold to us that would have us fighting each other for access to female privilege, or access to the vagina, or whatever it is. That men would just soon go over and start a fight with another guy because he looked at his girlfriend. I'm telling you, if I got a girlfriend and if some men ain't looking at her, then I'm probably more concerned about that if they ain't looking at her than if some dude's looking at my girl. I'm like, well, yeah.
I've noticed flirtatious females that are currently married or currently have boyfriends, and it is a trap. And they are far more flirtatious than single women. And there's some sort of psychology of it being safe because they're married or single, that they can kind of send out certain signals or dress in certain ways, or even the hairstyle. Certain hairstyles are very sexually attractive to some of us men. And some women understand this. It's like in the animal kingdom or in the animal world, certain colors or certain hairstyles will arouse the male. So I'm definitely seeing this in today's society, the married, non-single woman who constantly wants male attention. Well, we certainly live in a world of mixed signals.
Well, at some point in time, they've beaten their man down so far that they ain't getting none of that male. They've basically cuckolded him to the point where he won't stand up to her no more. So they'll seek that out through. I have lots of married friends. Okay, and I've noticed that. And at some point, if they cross that line where they are actually like using me as a way to make their husband subtly jealous, okay, then I typically have a tendency to stop interacting with both of them because I think that's basically using me. Okay, and I've had that happen. Yeah, that's a very real thing, and the men are basically, the only reason why they put up with you is because they basically have to, because she's running shit. And so, yeah, that's you're not imagining things. That's very real.
It feels like we as men are being subjected to this artificial rating system based on lots of different things, lots of different factors. How much money we have being one of them, one of many factors. How well we can entertain them, like some sort of dancing clown, i.e. good sense of humor, seems to be the other main factor in the personality chemistry equation to what makes a man, quote, attractive. Because with a female human, it seems to involve multiple factors at once.
Yeah, I think newness being the main factor. I think that they're addicted to not necessarily, it's the newness that you can supply. Okay, and it's definitely a me-based reality. It's basically a very malignant form of narcissism, okay, that allows that to perpetuate. I had a girlfriend at one time, and so, I caught her sending text messages back and forth with other men while sleeping in my bed. Okay, so that was just like, where on earth do you get this idea that that's okay? Okay,
Right.
planning your next whatever when you're in my bed. Okay, which to me was very hurtful. It really hurt. I mean, and I wasn't married to any of these women. In fact, we weren't even really, in a single committed monogamous relationship. So my thought was, well, I don't care. Just don't be doing it from here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be doing it in front of me. Don't be answering some dude's phone call. In my bedroom. Have some fucking basic fucking manners. Jesus Christ. I mean, I wouldn't do that to them. You have to learn through your heartbreak, and unless there's some ripping and tearing involved, then it's not real. And there's, in order to extract meaning from that, I do believe that there probably has to be some hurt, because if it's just like, okay, good, next, then, you're not going to extract meaning from it. And it's different to be able to experience things and be able to experience them enough that you extract meaning in the heartbroken department. You may have to go through several before you can extract meaning from the experience. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, having the ripping and tearing needs to be present in order to extract meaning from that and learn your lesson. And, and when you can do that, and you can actually look back and say, thank you, Angel, for showing me that lesson. And we did have some good times, and I cherish the good times that we had. Then you can reasonably say that you're a man on the move in the right direction. I saw a commercial the other day on, I watch football on TV. I don't watch TV, but I do watch games. And it's football season, Super Bowl this Sunday. And there was a couple sitting on a couch in front of a nice, big, huge TV. Both sitting on the couch with their little electronic devices. And they're texting each other, and it's showing up on the screen. So here's two people sitting on a couch that are communicating with each other through 3 different electronic devices now. And to me, that's just a horrible reflection on our society. And I got to come back to the men are the mechanical engineers of society, and the women are the social engineers. And so, from a mechanical engineer standpoint, when you look out there around the world and you see what the men have developed as far as engineering, and then you take a look at the social engineering, I think that pretty much speaks for itself.
And traditionally, males have been protectors of the village. And a lot of criticism of police in this day and age, but not a whole lot of people talking about going back to or investigating what is real community policing. What does it mean to really watch our own? I think we've gotten away from that. I think we're seeing the bystander effect in today's society, whether it's a woman being raped or a man being beat down by other men. We're seeing this emergence of the bystander effect. And I could see how the cell phone may seem to be a protector to some women. You can just call 911 and if you're being attacked, maybe, hopefully, you're in an area where an officer can come to your defense. It's almost as if the government, through technology and the cell phone companies, has become a surrogate boyfriend, mate, or protector. All through this illusion of safety, through this little thing they hold in their hands, which, by the way, gives away the location of where those females are. Again, another concern of mine for where we may be going down the line in the future of the planet. So I certainly think that there's major ways in which the cell phone has replaced men.
Absolutely. I like to call it my cell phone based life. Okay? And yeah, they had a thing on YouTube about a restaurant that had basically reduced its sales over the course of time, but they seemed busier than ever. And what they did was they went back and looked at a security tape from before all this cell phone mania and social information, and they found that the average ticket was 20 minutes less before the advent of people taking their pictures of food, people sitting down at the table without even picking up their menu for 10 minutes. okay, because they are texting and social networking. And then, of course, the waiter has to take time to take pictures of everybody next to their food. Okay, and so this is what you have, and I think females are a little more addicted to their cell phones than the men are. Okay, I'll say that. And yeah, it's a surrogate security man, surrogate protector. Okay, and they actually teach girls to, if you're walking around downtown, act like you're talking on your phone, with your headphones on. Put your headphones on, tune everything out, and if some guy walks up to you and says something, just act like you're talking to somebody. And so, yeah, they have effectively used that technology as a surrogate boyfriend. And, at the end of the day, I think that a lot of them are waking up to the fact that there's still no shortage of people who will, I've seen people out on dates and they're both got their ass buried in that fucking phone. And, if I go out on a date, I leave the phone in the car. I just think it's proper manners to do so. And to teach children about cell phone etiquette, I think that is very important. And I even had rules that my daughter wasn't allowed to just sit there and talk to her friends when we were in the car together. Because it was rude. You can answer the phone and say, hey, I'm in the car with my dad, and you know the rules, and I'll call you something. It's basic etiquette. And, to this day, my daughter would call me and tell me, I'm so glad you taught me those things. And I wasn't happy about them at the time. But, about 23, 24 years old is when a child really realizes, the value of their parents. And so the older they get, the smarter you get. But, until they actually have to buy their own toothpaste and toilet paper, they really don't have a clue,
Yeah, and the other thing is, even though it may seem like the cell phone is bringing more safety, what I see in the streets of Portland, I'm sure it's similar elsewhere, I see vulnerable, distracted women that are not looking around them.
They have no idea where they are on the planet.
Right, so in a way, they are making themselves targets by showing how into their cell phone they are. I would never blame a rape victim, but there are certain factors that can play into someone being a victim that people should think about, and people should not be so distracted by the cell phones. But I'm not going to get into judging how people dress, but I'll also say that when I look at the women in this town, I see so many pants and ways of dress and clothing that is designed to captivate my attention. And as a male who's trying to become more conscious, I'm trying to distract myself from their physical beauty because I'm aware of how they're dressing. I'm aware of its impact on my physiology.
Yeah, remember what Barbarossa said, the
Right.
barbar in the video? Just enough ass and tits for plausible deniability?
Right.
Just enough for plausible. I mean, you got to appreciate the guy who could work in the term plausible deniability into a feminist video.
These are crazy times because what I'm seeing is mixed signals. I'm seeing a female body that is
Stay
encouraging
away,
my attention, but I'm seeing the scowl, I'm seeing the stay away, and I'm in a society where I'm being told that I'm evil because I'm a male, because we're in the patriarchal world, and we're being told horrible things about us in the mainstream media and through other women, like our only purpose is to procreate, and we're predators. It's we're in a world of mixed signals, and I don't think that a world of mixed signals leads to a good mentally healthy population.
No, let's just bring it back to the trust thing. We know women haven't trusted us for a long time, and now we don't trust them. And how is that going to play out? And until some of us are courageous enough to put these things out there, and not worry about being ridiculed because of it, or even just being willing to accept the ridicule to the extent that I'd rather just tell the truth. I'd rather have it out there. I'd rather invoke your emotion. And if you hate me, then you're thinking about me. Okay? And in the end, that'll be a good thing. Okay? Because once the truth is out, now, cognitive dissonance will tell you that when you hold a core belief that's so strong, you can be presented with evidence of the truth. Okay, but still, that evidence is enough to release a certain chemical reaction in your body. that causes you pain. And so, but I'm not here to convince anybody. I prefer planting seeds and letting them grow, and if that's what I do, that's my approach to a lot of things. Is I'll plant the seed. We'll see if it germinates. We'll see if it grows. If it grows, um, and women aren't stupid. They're smart. At some point in time, they're going to look around. They're gonna realize that they're in charge of the social engineering, and that they may have to rethink just the basic tenets of what's out there. And if we work together, then we can do anything. Okay, and I've always held that, and I'll just kind of wind this up with something I've said many, many times, is that we will absolutely learn how to get along on racial lines: black, white, yellow, red, orange, gray alien, I don't care. This will happen before we learn how to get along as men and women. Okay, and the men and women thing will be the last thing that comes. But so, until the world comes together on those kind of terms, yeah, good luck with that one. I think Greg Braden stated it so eloquently. Now this machine right here, it's going through a series of frequencies. It's doing a frequency sweep. And so as you go through a frequency sweep, at a certain level of frequency, it morphs into another frequency. And he put it as that the Earth is also going through a frequency sweep. And as it ascends in its frequency, at some point in time it goes, and then all of a sudden it's on the other side of that, right? But that little part, that, and the creating awareness is the one thing that needs to happen. So once the awareness is created and it's accepted, by men and women that this is the state, then you'll be able to get, and that's where the turmoil is. It's right there on that little thing. And then once you're on the other side of that, then you're on the other side of it. And so, just even simple things like this, this conversation that we're having here today, and having the courage to put this stuff out there as men, because we, like I said, to find out who controls you, just look at who you are not able to criticize.